Jai Hind everyone, this is Achintya Pandey and as Assistant Professor in Department of Information Technology at Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College. Today I will going to discuss the many types of function which is used in C++ programming. Okay, so we are going to explore the topic understanding the varied functions in C++ programming. So everyone know that if we talk about C, C is basically the collection of functions. Okay, we have printf function, scanf function, or that is they are system defined function or predefined, or even we could have user defined functions. Okay, so it is a collection of function. So what is function? So function here in C++ we will also use the function. Okay, but the idea here we think about everything in terms of object. Okay, I mean how how we could make real world type object, how one category, how I mean one particular category of object could be wrapped into a class and all that. Okay, so function is basically self-contained block of statement that perform coherent task of some kind. Okay, sometimes it is called module. We can think like a large program could be divided into sub-program, and every sub-program could be implemented just by using the concept of function. So sometimes it is called modular programming. Like a big task could be divided into say n smaller tasks, and further these sub-tasks and smaller tasks could again be divided into say m task and all that. So this is called the functional approach or modular approach. Okay, so let's have some implementation kind of. So function in C++, how we are going to use. So if we say function could be of two category, one is library function, like they are defined in header like stdio.h, conio.h and all that. So they are library function, and once if a user create of its own, then they comes under the category user defined functions. Okay, so what is the syntax of function? So before writing function, the syntax of function, it would have prototype. Prototype shows the declaration portion of the functions, and it includes the return type of the function, the name of the function, and the what type of parameter of the function. They comes under the this is called prototype. Declaration portion is called prototype, and we could write the code that is called the definitions. So whatever the task, whatever the code, they could come under the definition portion, and the definition could be executed by calling that function. So we simply name the function followed by semicolon, then the definition of the function gets executed. Okay, so this is how the user defined function could be used. So in user defined function, if a user defined function is defined after main, compiler will show error. It is because compiler is unaware of user defined function. So we need to have the declaration, and that is called prototype declaration. I mean what type of function, either what type means what the value is going to return, either it is returning or not. So all those things need to be declared, and that comes under the prototype declaration. For example, let's see with this example, sum is a function. Okay, so this function taking two argument a and b, 10 and 20. So how we are going to use this thing? So just to show how the compiler going to understand, so the user need to write the declaration portion, which we say prototype. So we can say that this function is having return type integer, and they are going to take two arguments, say x and y. So we could have the nature of the function. We could know the nature of the function. So what are the nature? What is the nature? Nature, so the return type, this function is going to return some value, integer, and this function is taking two argument integer, say x and y. So here once we call, how the function gets called? Simply by writing the name of the function and simply by passing the argument which we require. Like if you are going to pass 10 and 20, we simply pass A and B, which contain 10 and 20. Okay, so this is our calling function. So once you call, the control jump to the definition. Say here, this is called definition portion. Okay, okay. So once we call, the control simply jump or find where the definition is written. So it will jump to here, and simply A means 10 and 20 will be copied into X and Y, and return X plus 5 means 10 plus 20 means 30. So basically this function is going to add two numbers, okay, in such a way that these two numbers are the argument of the function, okay, and return type is integer. So simply it will return means here it will again come back to definition where it been called, okay, and it will store in C, and simply we have printed the C, right. So this is a simple program which shows how we could use the function, right. So declaring, defining and calling function we have discussed. Declaring, this is called prototype. Defining means the exact code which could be write in the function, okay, and calling means how the code is going to be invoked, okay. Now we have seen here, like we have passed two argument A and B. So how we are going to call a function? So function call be of two types: call by value, call by reference. So once we are going to simply pass the value, I mean simply you write 10, 20, or we could pass the variable which store these value. So function call could be of two types. One is called call by value, and second one is called call by reference. So in call by value, we simply pass the value, I mean name of the variable even, and call by reference, we pass the address of the variable, okay. So variable could be accessed either by the name of the variable or even by using the address. I mean indirect you could write. So there will have requirement of pointer which is stored the address of another variable and all that, right. So in a call by value we have already seen. Let's have another example, like here X, we simply pass this X into calc and we print, right, print %dx. So what the value of X will be printed. So once this function is going to call, it will jump to the definition portion. X will have X plus 10 means 10 plus 10 20. So here X become 20, and once you print %dx, it will print 20. So this is called call by value, okay. And in call by reference, what we are going to pass? We are going to pass the address. For example, if we have X equal to 10 and we are going to pass the address of 10, so we could think like we have a variable X which is having value 10, and we are going to pass the address of X. For let's suppose the address of X become 1000. So what the function is taking? 1000, okay. So since 1000 is address, so we require the formal argument as a pointer which is store the address. So here we can see that the formal argument, and formal argument means argument which is inside the definition. So this becomes the printer. So P will simply store, P is a pointer which will simply store the address, that is 1000 in this case. So we could have, there could have a logic, or you can, there could have a link of P to X, okay. So P will store 1000. The meaning of star P means the value at P. So what will be the value at P? Means the value at 1000, which is 10 plus 10 becomes a 20. So output becomes 20. Okay. Okay. Star, the meaning of star P is the value at P, and the value at P means, what is the value at P? The value at 1000, that is 10. Okay. And plus 10, so it will have 20. So indirectly X will be replaced and this becomes the 20. So if you are going to print x, it will print 20. Okay. So in both case, either by call by value or call by reference, we could make pass. There are two ways to pass variable, either by call by value or call by reference. Okay. These are some category, like argument could be of function with no argument, return type and all that. Okay. Okay. Next category of function is in C++, which is inline function. Inline function means it would behave just like as a macro. See, the nature of function is what? Like a function gets executed, so it takes a considerable amount of time. Once a function gets executed, how the function is going to execute? Once you call the function, the control jump to the definition, which will take some time. It evaluates the argument and even the evaluate the parameter, which will evaluate in stack. So that will take some time. So doing so, it will take a considerable amount of time as comparison to if it didn't do. Okay. So inline function, what does it? Like it will simply replace that, just like in a macro. So this becomes comparatively faster rather than the original function. Okay. So if a user have very less number of code, if a function has say single line of code or 2-3 line of code, we could better make it as an inline function. So cost of call is reduced once we make the inline function. So for that we use simply qualifier inline function, and by that we could make the inline function and all, right? Okay. What is the friend function in C++? The friend function could be used. So why we require the friend function? See, C++ has utility to use the friend function. Like the nature of a class, see the nature of class. A class could have two things. One is member variable or member function. So we have already dictated that member variable could be accessed only by the member function of the class, not by any another class. Like again, what is the point? The point is the member of a class cannot be accessed outside of that class. They could only be accessed by the member function of that class, right? So if we make a friend function, so they show some extendability. Say friend function, so they are going to friendly with another class. So once become the friend to another class, that another class can also be access these functions. Okay. Otherwise could not. Of a class is not allowed to access the variable of some different class, but by making or have some utility of using friend, so they could do so. Okay. Okay. So to declare a function as a friend of a class, precede the function prototype in the class. Like here we could say we would have to write the keyword friend while print. Okay, print width. So this become the friend function. So they could friendly with some another class. This function could be access. This function could access box as well as the class where it would have the friend. That class to go. So okay. So this is the basic program. Okay. Next category of function is recursive program. Like in case of factorial or some Ackermann function. So what is recursive function? Here the concept is your recursion. So what is recursion? Recursion is basically if we define something in terms of itself. then this process is called recursion. So recursive function which use the concept of recursion. So a function which call itself is known as recursive function. Okay, like in case of factorial 5, for example, if we talk about factorial 5, so we could write factorial 5 as a 5 into factorial 4. Okay, so if we make factorial n, so what could be recursive version of n? So n into factorial n minus 1. Okay, so if we could define something in terms of even itself, then there we could use the recursion concept. Okay, so recursion is nothing but something to define in terms of itself. So function that call itself is known as recursive function. Like here we have a function recurse, and recurse called recurse. So same function calls recurse. So what is the significance? Significance, we will simply change the argument, otherwise it will never end. Okay, so we will reduce or increase somehow, okay, the argument values, and we could use the concept of recursion. Okay, say for example this program, so example of recursive function. So here we are going to find out the factorial value of any given number using recursive function. So we have made a function factorial, okay, and this will return the integer, I mean factorial value, and this argument so that the number which we want to find its factorial. Okay, so for example, enter a number to find factorial. Let's suppose it is 6. So n will have 6, factorial of n is factorial l. So this is the function call. So once factorial 6 will be called, it will jump to the definition here. So n will have simply 6. If n is greater than 1, yes, it is greater than 1. So this will return n means 6 into factorial 5. Okay, so again this function is called, so it will call to itself. So it will become definition here, factorial 5 means 6 into 5 into factorial 4, and so on. So once it becomes the 1, if it is 1, in that case it will become 1. So final value will be 6 into 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, which is the factorial of 6. So here we have seen that this factorial has been defined in terms of factorial. So this nature is called recursive function. Okay, so here we have seen so many category or type of function, like user defined function, like system defined function, like we have seen inline function, different types of function, like friend function, recursive function, and all. Okay, so depending on the type of problem, depending on how we are going to solve the problem, we could use any category of this function. Okay, so that's all about. Thank you, everyone.